democratic activity, and also in some cases in relation to toys or to games. Let's zoom in and look at the map. So this is Kedesh, the first case we'll refer to. The second one is on the North Temple of Eshmun, north of Sidon, which Mariana also referred to. And the last one will be Omrit, again in Upper Galilee, a Roman temple which was excavated until recently. And you can also see the Hellenistic city of Akko Ptolemais, and another shrine, Hellenistic shrine that I will mention very shortly, El Ahmed, which is on the Lebanese side of the border, very close to the border, to the northern border. So the first case is Tel Kedesh, the Horde of Tel Kedesh. It was published 2 years ago in the American Journal of Archaeology. And so I will present it. You can see the location of Tel Kedesh in Upper Galilee. It was a city, or maybe a town. It wasn't a polis. It wasn't declared as a polis, but it was a city in the region of Tyre, according to the historical sources, mainly Josephus. And it was not a very large city, but very prominent in Galilee. And as you can see here, in the late 90s and the beginning of the millennium, an American expedition led by Sharon Herbert and Andrea Berlin excavated the southern side of the mound, where they discovered a very large building dated to the Persian and Hellenistic period, which was abandoned in the mid-2nd century BC. Here you can see the plan. You can see, well, this is not the final plan, because this is the plan of 2010, and later on they expanded it a little. And you can see main courts with halls and rooms, and they could tell by the finds the function of the different units. You have cooking and utility areas, bin rooms, probably collecting taxes of barley, wheat, and so on, food preparation, and so on. I would like to draw your attention to two main places in this building. First is the archive complex, which made them very conclusive about the administrative function of this building. And second is the reception complex, painted in pink, and the star is the finding spot of the horde I will show you shortly. But just a very brief look at the bullae which were found in the archive. Almost 2,000 bullae, mostly of Hellenistic deities and Seleucid portraits, but also some Phoenician iconography, like you can see the Tanit symbol. So these bullae were found in the archive. Some were published, but most of them are still awaiting publication. Sharon Herbert is working on them currently. Here you can see the building in aerial photo, and again, the star marks the finding spot of the horde. And what we have in one of the reception rooms, which were declared as reception rooms because they had stucco in the masonry style on the walls, and even some patches of white mosaic. So what they have here is a floor which was badly damaged, not much remained of it. But there were like 8 slabs of stones laid on the floor, and when they took out one of them, they found an interesting cache of finds. They found a bronze stylus in its iron case, an inkwell made of bronze but with a lead weight, a tiny hairpin made of bone. Now you start waking up, yeah? 18 glass counters and 5 glass astrogals. And last but not least, this young Eros that was the reason why they called me to see the object, because I was working with terracotta figurines from the region. So I was very lucky at first to be acquainted with the Eros, but only took a few days until I realized the Eros is not alone. Mm-hmm. It was found together with all this beautiful cachet. I suppose it was hidden under the floor, deposited there, probably in a sack or a bag or something which perished. So let's have a brief look at the items. So let's start with the hairpin. Well, bone and ivory hairpins are common in the Hellenistic and Roman period, but I must say I didn't find many parallels with the figures. Sometimes you can see all kinds of objects, but figures are not very common. You can see them in the Roman hairpins, they are quite common, but not in the Hellenistic period. And then luckily Ian Stern, who sits here, found in his excavations at Maresha a very similar hairpin, but made of ivory. And you can see here there is a hole for sticking the metal part of it, so you can bound your hair and put it on the knob. So this one is not as nice as this one, because the Kaddish one is made of bone, but still you can see the details. It's a woman, probably a deity, could be Nike, could be Aphrodite, we don't know exactly, could be just female figure, and it's very, very, very small. You can see this is centimeter. Next comes the Eros figurine. To my best knowledge, it's the finest figurine ever found in the region, and when I say finest, I'm speaking about technology. I'm not new. Beautiful is a matter of point of view, but if you look at the technical details, at the clarity, at the joints of the parts, and at the paintings, the retouching made after taking out of the mold, I think this is the finest I've ever seen in the region. So beautiful that I suspected it was imported from abroad, from overseas, but apparently the petrographic analysis made to it pointed to the Tyre region, which is interesting. I would like to hear Mariana, what do you think about it? So I won't get into details about the technology and about all the details, but looking for parallels is very easy. I think Eros is the most prominent deity in the Hellenistic world. All over the Mediterranean, from Italy in the west to Mesopotamia in the east, from the Black Sea in the north to Egypt in the south, you find his image everywhere. And close parallels could be found in Alexandria, Marina tombs, and Delos. But most of the terracotta figurines of Eros is either very childish or slim youngster. And at Maresha, it's something which I couldn't find a very good parallel. So I suspected maybe at Haraev, which we've just seen, there's something similar. Look at the chubby face, yeah, and the round face and the hint of a smile, which I thought might resemble some of the Haraev terracottas. So I'm following Mariana's steps. We have education, we have all those issues that you raised. So next comes what I thought might be a writing kit, not writing instrument, but a kit. Well, part of it. I assume maybe also other things were deposited in this hoard, maybe perishable materials, which were part of it. So we can see stylus to write on a tablet, and the inkwell to write on parchment or papyrus, which means two different techniques of writing. As for the inkwell, it took a while. It was found crushed, and we had to restore it. And at first, I thought it's a Pixies. Mm-hmm. And then I thought it might have to do with cosmetics, but I wasn't sure about it. And then when it was restored, and with the chains and the general appearance, it occurred to me that it is an inkwell. And well, for the first time, I realized that this bowl shape is particularly Hellenistic, because in the Roman period, they're normally more cylindrical. And here you can see examples from Maresha in South Israel, Ashdod in South Israel. These are made of clay, this is made of lead. And this one from Metaponto, from the west, I think it's made of bronze. I don't know why, oddly, it doesn't say, the paper doesn't say. But what is very interesting, not just similarity, but also the stabilizing weight, which was put inside so it won't flip over. You can see this little bullet, heavy bullet, as they write. And we have on the left, on the upper left, this kind of cylindrical object made of lead, which was found on the lid, upside down on the lid. So it was probably meant to stabilize it, because so the ink won't spill out. That's for you, Mariana. So, styling. On the right, you're familiar with the images. You're familiar with this one from Haraev, but this one was recently found by Ian Stern, who sits here at the back. We have also pupils from Maresha, but here we have two. A girl and someone sitting next to her. Unfortunately, we still didn't find the other fragments. I suppose this is a boy, because you can see the barefoot. So maybe a boy and a girl. How equal, how genderly equal. They sit one next to the other, practicing the alphabet and writing. And of course, I chose specifically the girls, because you see shortly that this is the direction I'm aiming at. So we have an evidence for, again, writing on a tablet, and I think the best depictions of the whole this whole iconography comes from Pompeian wall paintings, where you can see, for example, here the whole set: the inkwell, the reed pen, the papyrus, the tablet, and the stylus. And when it comes with figures, it's really interesting, again, if I connect to your paper, Mariana, that who holds the stylus? The lady, the woman, not the man. So maybe also the tablet, which is more basic, more, ordinary, was related in a symbolic way to the woman, whether the papyrus, which is more official, more high status, was maybe symbolically related to men, but just an idea, I'm not sure about it. So to warm you up, the glass objects. So we have 5 astragals, and I already put here in the slide what I thought it might be. Could be not just astragals, but a kit of 5 astragals. So maybe the 5 pebbles, pentelita, and the 18 plano-convex counters, which I think they belong to a board game. But let's start with the astragal. Astragals, I know you're all familiar. Maybe this slide is unnecessary for you. You all know what is the astragal. And of course, the main users, not the only users, but the main users which are tested are games, gambling, and divination. They're very common throughout the Mediterranean and beyond, from the Neolithic period until today. A student of mine, who is maybe in her 60s, she came to me after one of the meetings in my course with a knucklebone, saying, I used to play with this in my village. So I still played with the natural ones. And another student of mine who came from Paris, she brought it to me as a present. So you can pass it on. So knucklebones, whether natural or imitated in different materials, are still played today, and I'm sure Ulrich can maybe tell us more about it. And another slide which you're for sure familiar with are the iconographic evidence for players of the 5 pebbles, the 5 stones, which I used to play as a child, but with metal cubes. We had like metal cubes which we used to throw and to hold them. Now, as you can see, I put in bold letters, girls playing 5 pebbles, because I could find mainly girls playing them. There is also the famous description by Pollux, who explains how to play with them, and it says, it is above all a woman's game. And again, if I can testify from my own experience, as a child, everybody played the 5 pebbles, but mostly the girls in my school, in my neighborhood. So it's interesting, but again, that's something I think we should bear in mind. One issue that I saw in the publication referring to astragals is those made of glass, are they purely symbolic or can they be played with? Dusenberry, who published the small finds from the Samothraki tombs, she said they are symbolic because they are breakable, you can't play with them, but I think they can be played with. First of all, you don't play on a floor, you play on the ground. And second, you have these marbles, which again I played as a child, and they don't break. By the way, these are the 5 stones I used to have. So I think they can be played with. They're just more luxurious than the natural ones, but I just raised this question. Now let's move to the glass counters. Generally speaking, I could see people refer to them as either inlays, jewels, or gaming pieces. But again, since they were found in this specific context next to the 5 astragals, I think they belong to the sphere of games. And as for the board games, I'm sure we will hear more about them today. The 5 lines, the robbers, and the mancala, which some articles argue that was played already in early times. I was wondering whether the astragals served as dice for the board game. Like it was one kit. You play with the gaming pieces, but you throw the dice in order to see how to move. But I came to the conclusion that there are probably 2 separate kits because we have 5 astragals, which again they fit this kind of play and not just as a dice. But just to show you why I was wondering, this is I don't know if you're familiar with this paper. Sorry that it's cut. About tombs in Macedonia, in which were found complete sets of games. You can see the counters, dice, the board, and even remains of a wooden board. So it was argued that the dice used for the same game, it's like one whole kit, but I think in the Kaddish hall there are 2 separate kits. Now moving to the objects in the context, I elaborated in the paper, I won't elaborate on it now. I was looking for 2 possibilities. First, which I decided are not the right direction. One was a foundation deposit, but first of all, this hoard does not fit a foundation deposit. It's very private, it's very personal, and it's too much luxurious to be, normally in foundation deposit are more models, not real objects. And another possibility of magic rite, and perhaps love spell because of Eros. And also the hairpin, which sometimes you use a lock of hair from the woman you love, you steal a lock of hair in order to make the spell work. But again, it is very much different than evidence for love spells we have. And again, it looks very real, it looks very daily life. It looks as if it was owned by someone and not something which was collected for the purpose of a certain ceremony. So where do we find these objects? So we can find them throughout the Mediterranean, but very common in tombs. I think even more than sanctuaries, much more than houses. I think in houses they are hard to be found because they are very small. So they skip, sometimes they skip the excavators. But in tombs there are many of them. You can see Italy, Greece, and elsewhere. And what was very interesting is that when the skeletons could be examined, there were skeletons, not cremation, they were associated with either women, young women normally, or children. Mostly lacking from men too. And that goes also for Eros figurines. This is from Grepler's work in Tarentum, and he showed that they are very common in, again, young women and children too. And also at Myrina, same picture. What about sanctuaries? So we saw the Caberion, which is could be a little bit earlier, depends what kind of find, but much closer to Tel Kedesh. We have at Haraim. Here are the counters on the top, and here at the bottom you can see the 5 glass astragals which was found in the Farisa of Haraim, and could be again deposited there by one of the children who came to the temple. But what really made me understand what I'm looking at was a beautiful article by Simons about this Attic Athenian Lekythos. And I will summarize what she says about it. There is a groom and a bride about to be wed. He still needs to win her because now she's playing with an ugly satyr. And if he wins, she will have to marry him, not him. But look, she's winning. She managed to catch 3 astragals on her head. So now she's been crowned by Eros, and there's also perhaps Aphrodite. So everything is good. She will marry her beloved. She doesn't have to marry this ugly satyr. So that was the interpretation of this whole Lekythos. And then when I read this paper, this was the moment when I realized that what I might have here is a pre-marriage offering of a young bride. And we have some sources that connect different objects, like the Anacreon, who connects astragals and Eros, of course, and this beautiful epigram from the Greek anthology speaks about Hippa the maiden, that she is about to wed, for the solemn time when she must wed, the second line. And then, with all the other things she offers, she has bidden farewell to her knuckle bones, to have husband and children. And what is really interesting, this epigram is attributed to Antipater. Now we have 2 Antipaters in the Greek mythology. We have one from Macedonia and one from Sidon, which is walking distance. You can walk there like, I don't know, maybe a day or 2 days. And according to the style, this is more suitable to Antipater from Sidon. So maybe we have an evidence, maybe 1 century later, maybe less, again about someone who bids farewell to her knuckle bones. And of course Pausanias, who speaks about the unmarried daughters who died early and they are now sitting and playing with knuckle bones. And this is kind of a symbol to the unmarried status. I think that's the reason why they're also found in tombs. So, the Kedesh Hod, the combination of astragals, gaming pieces, and an Eros figurine, together with a hairpin, would seem to indicate a young woman about to be married who dedicated possessions that symbolized the passage from childhood to adulthood in order to guarantee a successful marriage. Other objects that might have been also in the hold and perished, lock of hair, wooden tablet, reed pen, board game, sack of for the astragals, and perhaps also accessories like belt, hood, other stuff. I was wondering why leaving behind the writing instruments, and then my association was about those ladies in the 18th century that were brought up with music and Latin and all these very not useful things for their own life, but they were prepared to be married, to catch a good husband. And once they got married, now the roles are changed, are supposed to be the housewife, the mother, something different. So maybe, again, this lady was brought up writing, she was educated, but maybe she leaves her writing kit. And what is still enigmatic to me is that the position of a private hall in an administrative building, it's not a temple, it's not a house, it's something administrative. It could be that this lady was the daughter of the officer. It could be that ceremonies took place in this building. I can't tell for sure. Second case, which I'll show very short, was also mentioned by Mariana before, the temple of Shmun, which is identified with Asclepius, Busta el-Sheikh, north of Sidon. And this is a very big compound, dated from very early, I think from even the Iron Age, but mostly Persian period, and Hellenistic. And it is related to children cult, and I will show you just 3 slides to demonstrate this. First of all, we have these statues made in marble and in local stone, which were found, many statues published by Stupi, of children standing, crouching, seated, all kinds of, mostly boys, but also girls. And I think this is very evident that this place has to do with children. But also there is the children's frieze at the temple, which you can see in here. And the scenes on the blocks resemble very much what we saw at Haraib, terracottas. You can see children riding animals, playing with animals. Here is the rooster, you can see ducks, you can see dogs. So it's like a more vivid depiction, a more scene-like depiction of what we've seen before in the figurines of Form 5. Another thing we can see are the basins or the small pools that are around this place with channels bringing the water over to the basins. And in the pools, which are dated to the Hellenistic period, do not speak about 30,000 glass counters. That's the only picture he showed. I think also Mariana showed this picture. But in this paper, he speaks about thousands. In another paper, he speaks about 30,000. How long did it take to count them all? Digging, these little things. So, in the pools, in the Hellenistic pools, this was found in a tomb. So this is something else. And this is the paper, published in the late 70s. And I really, really like the way he explained it. He didn't speak about symbolic counters or about offerings or ex votos. He wrote it as a parent. He wrote about coming to the temple. You have a ceremony to perform. You brought maybe some victim to sacrifice. Maybe food. You have all these baskets you carry, and then you have this annoying child crying and hungry and shouting at you, and you need to distract him to keep him quiet or her quiet. So he said it was used in the temple to entertain the children, to distract them so they won't interrupt us. And yesterday I spoke to my sister. She's a mother to 4. And she laughed. She said, that's so true. I mean, wherever I go with them, I need something to make them busy, you know, some food, some snacks, and something to play with. So that was his way of thinking. Also, if you can see in the second paragraph, he pointed at those little sockets cut around the pool, which he thought might be used together with these glass counters. And my association was another game that I used to play with my friends when I was a child, with apricot pits. We used to try to, you know, to make them, it's like golf, but in very mini, to these little holes in the ground we used to have. So that was do not think, and I think he has a very good point. One of the statues found in the same temple shows a chubby boy crouching with a dove in one hand and astrogals in the other hand. But I was wondering how old is he, because those crouching figures are explained to be not standing yet or not walking yet, which means like 6 months, 8 months. And I think every parent knows you can't give such a young baby something so small. First lesson you learn is not to give him anything that he can put in his, because he will put it in his mouth and he can die from it. So that's a good question. How old is he? Why is he crouching? But I leave it to you, I have no idea. Last case hasn't been published yet. It's a new in-progress study of a Roman temple which was excavated during the 90s and the beginning of the millennium and until a few years ago by an American expedition. It's in Upper Galilee near the Golan in Israel. And there are 3 phases. You can see them in 3 colors, but I'm interested in the 2 early phases, which are both 1st century BC, around 50 BC, maybe 30 BC. You can see like this is the early stage, this is the later stage, or is even much later stage, but this is what they call the early shrine, which is 1st century BC. And you can see that in the later phase, they buried the sacred architectural blocks and so on, like a favisa for the sacred architecture of the previous shrine. I was working on terracotta figurines from this temple, which unfortunately were found spread all over, probably during the constructions and reconstructions that were spread. We didn't find a favisa, but we found like about 200 very small fragments, and they can be divided into 2 series. One series is of normal, late Hellenistic types, very normal. I won't show them here except for one. And the other half are of large-scale figurines from 30 to 50 centimeters, all in fragments, which are relevant to our workshop. But let's start just with one of the small types, which relates Omrit to Phoenicia. Okay, because Omrit is inland and Phoenicia is more on the coast. But we found this very, very little fragment. And the only parallel I know of is from Haraib, this priest, but look, he's not very old. I don't know what did children or adults were used also as priests. I don't know, it's something we should consider. But he holds this vessel, incense burner. We don't have different views about it. And this vessel, which is very Phoenician, very local, is also attested at El Ahmed, which is another Phoenician shrine. You can see it's by Henrik Michel. She sent me, she let me use these drawings. So this is very local. It's very Roman, very local. But let's see the large scale figurines. You can see one of the small scale and one of the large scale. You can see how large they are. We had many fragments like this, many limbs, many fragments. I estimate between 20 to 30 complete ones. It's hard to tell. Basically what we have is young children, mostly chubby toddlers. They are portrayed standing according to the pose of the feet fragment. Some are nude, others draped with a sleeveless tunic. Hope you can see that. Some are portrayed barefoot and others are wear shoes. The arms are bent aside and lifted in a benediction or adoration pose with the palm open and turned outwards. The arms carry bracelets. I don't know if you can see the bracelet. Yeah. So these are the heads, different ages. The chubby belly, again, typical of 2 or 3 years. Upraised arm or arms, I don't know, they're all in fragment. I don't know if they stand like this or like this. We have both left and right hands. Some are nude and some are draped. Why are they draped? Are there like gender differences or age differences? Now, next slide is dedicated to you, Véronique, because I relied heavily upon your work, and thank you so much for this. We have crescent-shaped amulets hang on some of the bodies, and at least in one case, I'm pretty sure it's a girl because this is it's painted in blue. This is a chiton, a chiton, which is typical of girls. So we have the lunula, maybe, the crescent-shaped amulet, which I found it in the Mediterranean from very ancient times. And this is just a depiction from the Arab Pakistan, but they are known elsewhere. Just 2 examples, the Fayum mummies and a Roman figurine from Athens, just to show you. By the way, they're not very common. Bullae are much more common. You can see bullae in iconography, Roman iconography, much more than lunula. And lunula is mostly related to girls, not exclusively. As you can see here, not exclusively. This is a boy, and you can see the lunula here. This is one of the temple boys from Cyprus. But they are more common in relation to girls. Not only lunula, but also bracelets, which might be a protopaic, not just a decoration, but also protective. And this orthopedic, no, look at them, all these palms, both right and left. And I measured them in order to calculate the height, because the palm is 10% of the height. The head is not very indicative because the size of the head changes as you grow. It goes. So that's how I came to 30 to 50 centimeters according to the size of the head. And we even have one complete, which is solid, and it might have served as an archetype. I'm not sure, because I'm not sure they were produced on site, but one complete. The gesture itself, the pose, we know it from the region. This is from Morit itself. It's a priest of the same temple. And this is from Palmyra in Syria. Look, there's a mother and child standing like this. Look at me, adoration, benediction, pray. I don't know. These are the legs. And I would like to conclude soon. So I'll move to some parallels and then the conclusions. I couldn't find parallels to this assemblage as an assemblage. I would like to hear if you know of anything like it. I've never seen, not in the West, not in the East, as an assemblage, such a thing. I did find parallels, for example, in Sarajevo, including the bracelets. By the way, it's interesting that Shihab says they are 1st century, just like Umri, because he found them on the surface. Okay, so maybe, yeah, I could find a parallel for here, for that limb and that face, but not as a whole assemblage. I was wondering about the gap between the technology and the goal. Mold weight technique suitable for mass production, but used for individual portrayals. Each one is different. So why do you use molds? The benefit of molds is once you have a mold, you can produce 1,000 figurines in one mold. But here, it's like a portrait. Every hand, well, the hands were similar, but other than the hands, they were all very different. It's like a portrait, so it's more individually made. And I was looking for parallels. This is for a very nice project studying the wax infant models from Cyprus, which are still being used in churches. So I'll be looking again about the individuality of each of them. Okay. So children's cut. I'm sorry that it's cut, so I'll read it for you. Passage rites, initiation, mystery cults, the occasions, and again I rely heavily on Veronique's works and of course on works of other scholars, especially in the West on swaddled babies, and the East on temple boys. There are many papers and books about these matters. So the occasions are after birth, when passing from infancy to childhood, and when reaching puberty. There is also Thanksgiving for children surviving the risky phase of early childhood, age of 2 or 3. That's what I think we see in Harayb, in most examples. Maybe over the critical years with high mortality rate, maybe age of weaning. I know that it can be 2 years, it can be maybe 3 years. And the amuletic objects. Of course, there are healing cults. At least at Sidon, it's quite obvious because Eshmun is the healing god. And social mobility in the family. And again, if I look at Omrit, at the Rekotos for Omrit, the age of 3 is the age when the baby becomes independent. He or she can, they don't crawl anymore. They listen to your orders. They don't always follow them, but at least there's someone to talk to. In certain societies, they're starting being educated. And in certain societies, they move from the mother to the father hegemony. And here I bring 2 examples. The upper one shows that in the age of 3, in the traditional Orthodox Jews societies, the boys and girls, they go to study for the first time. It's like a kindergarten, but they study the alphabet. And the first day, they dip their fingers in letters which are dipped in honey. So they touch the aleph, the A, and then the bet, which is the alphabet, and lick it, and the letters are so sweet. So that's the first day, and it's the age of 3. And another thing they do at the age of 3, including friends of mine who did it, not me, the first haircut. Maya, you spoke about the age of 4, so they do it in the age of 3, and there's a ceremony. It's a big deal. All the family comes. They go to a certain place. There is a place. There is a ceremony, food, music, and the first haircut. And again, it's also a gender symbol, because if you're a boy, it is as if you don't belong to the mother anymore. Now you can belong to the father as well. As for the toys, the role of toys and games in rites can be offerings, can be ex votos, which means, as answer to a vow made, can be symbolic or decorative. Practical roles like occupying and distracting the children, and they come along other objects related to children, writing instruments, figurines, and amulets, and adornments, as Mariana also showed before. And 3 examples for celebrating the new baby, things that you can find online, like souvenirs for the guests. So maybe some of the things that we find in these places are last thing, which was also, I think Véronique spoke about it in her introduction, is where are these temples or shrines, except for Kedesh. Kedesh, it's not a shrine, it's an administrative building. But I put in blue circle the cities, and in yellow and green star the shrines. And you can see none of them is in the city. They are all outside the city. They are all rural shrines. And I think you can see it everywhere in the Mediterranean also. Okay, so we have the town mouse and the country mouse, yeah? Why is it so? Why? Or you can see in Italy, I think maybe also in Greece. You mentioned Véronique and the Cabrera, they're outside the city. Vicky also mentioned it. So there could be many explanations. Some I read of, some I thought of. So it has to do with liminality of age and liminality between regions, between cities, and liminality of passage rights. You pass from one phase to another phase. So to do it in the countryside, maybe it's more suitable. Maybe it has to do with pilgrimage. It's an act you have to work hard for. You need to go there, not just to pass by the temple in the center of town. You have to go. You have to prepare. There's a preparation to be made. Maybe it has to do with pilgrimage. Maybe it has to do with no politics involved, because in Phoenicia, for example, Tyre and Sidon, which are very close or very nearby, were rivals. They were not friends. They were fighting on economy, on fishing, on sailing. They did not fight in terms of war, but they were kind of rivals. So maybe this kind of activity you don't want to hold in a place which is identified with this politician or this bulle or this. It's in between. It belongs to no one. And the last thing is a little bit nasty. You know, you go to a restaurant, you want to enjoy a nice evening, and then there is a family with a little baby screaming and shouting and spilling on the food. Maybe out of sight, out of sight. So maybe all these cults were just performed away, you know. But just my thought, probably there are other explanations. So thank you so much. And I really
So thank you so much for your presentation. It was very interesting.
Very childish.
Yes, very Are there any questions?
I'm again very curious to know what Elrich thinks about all these 30,000 counters. What do you think? Are they counters or are they something else? And the holes around the pool?
I go back to the...
It's difficult to say something about these row of holes. This is difficult to say. But I've got another question concerning the Tel Kadesh find. The counters. So there are 2 points. One point is that we have practically no sources that tell us that children play board games in antiquity. And the second thing is when on other places where you find these glass counters, for example, normally you find them in relatively indistinguishable groups. Black ones, white ones, something like that.
One color?
Color, yeah. Not always in the same number, or rarely in the same number, but usually you can group them in 2 or 3 groups. So this is not the case with these counters from Tel Kadesh. There are different colors, different types. There is also a
also here.
Yeah.
By the way. And she spoke about different, more than one player. That's what she said.
There's a pebble also within. So, could it be that these counters are not, since it seems to be a kind of a school context, you know, she has these writing instruments, could it be that these counters are not for a game, for a board game, but for calculation? For an abacus.
I buy this.
You know, because you use stones, little counters. This is why they are called counters in English, because you count with them, and you move them on a board on an abacus. And this could also be an explanation for these glass counters. So you have the whole school context practically of a girl. Of course, the astragals, this is the favorite pastime of a girl. But then there are these writing stuff and calculation stuff. And my question would be, is there on all these little figurines of these girls with the tablets on their knees, is there something on these tablets? There were some where I had the idea that there was something like a counter on top or something like that. Is there something on these tablets?
I would assume that if there would have been, it would have been painted and then gone. But I have to look again at the figurine which Ian found. I don't remember I saw something like. But thank you so much. It's a wonderful idea to think of her. 2 + 2. No, again. Yeah, that's really appealing. Yeah.
On a tablet you have abacus and you move these counters. So this is the usual method of counting, making calculations.
Thank you.
And we may come back to that later, because that's one of the problems of identifying board games. Is it a board for a game or is it for abacus? So there is also an ambiguity in identifying the material. So it would really make sense. If you go to the first one, just before, it's for Thomas, because I had the feeling that one of the counters has some gold.
This one?
No, this one. You see the blue one? Does it have, because in Orange you found a blue one with a gold leaf on it. Is it something like this, or just?
I think this is just
no cover.
Yeah, if I recall it right.
At one point about continuities, you said that when you were young, and you showed a picture, you were playing with cubes. So you mean dice?
No, they're not. There's nothing on. It doesn't say 1, 2, 3, 4. It just.
Yeah, but it is interesting.
Yeah. That's the way we used to play.
With this question of what is the difference between playing with dice and playing with knucklebones? Is it the same, not the same? And here or there we found references to dice being also for divination. So you see what I mean? But
you don't have
these ones are no more dice, but nevertheless you have the shape, and it shows that indeed ergonomically it is possible, and it is even culturally possible to change one shape to the other.
Yeah. You don't have them in Europe? I mean, that's...
Yeah, so in Poland there are many options, astragals or little stones or fruits like wooden. And in modern Greeks there is a pedovola. There is 5 little stones. There is the same game as Pentapentelica or Pentelithise in ancient Greek. And as you call this for under gender perspective, it is womanly, it is game for girls.
Parthenoi.
Yeah,
Parthenoi is very specific, it's unmarried girls.
Yeah.
So it's countermarked by Pollux.
And what a white 5?
And day 5 also with the châtaigne, the normal little chestnuts. Yeah, chestnuts, and also nuts with nuts. They have many items.
When I saw the image of the clay impressions, are they the bulle? I would say that it's an archive of seals. We know from Ziugma, Cyrene, Delos, archive. Yes. A person had in a public archive a copy of her personal seal in order to verify a document or something like that. And now I am thinking that a person, after coming of age, becomes a citizen, and possibly he has to have a personal seal. Maybe it makes sense.
Like a maturation.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I thought of marriage contracts. But thank you. Yeah. And because the ceilings are mostly private, not official. 80, over 80%, according to the type, are not official.
Yeah. And another thing, possibly you don't know that in the Veneto, women learned to write, and there is tablets on bronze with writing exercise in order to learn how to put a punctuation after a group of consonants. And they were female girls, and there are also styly, which is something like that, offerings to the goddess, who is called Prometheia. Yeah.
Thank you.
With many mistakes.
I would like to ask you, can you say a little bit more about the historical setting of Tel Kedesh at the time of these fantasies?
Yeah.
Is this pre-Hasmonean?
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I didn't close my issue. So, Tel Kedesh was, according to Josephus, was a pagan city. Pagan means non-Jewish for Josephus. When he says pagan, it was a pagan city in the region of Tyre, and it was conquered, according to Josephus, by one of the Hasmoneans, by Jonathan, actually. Now, the abandonment of the building fits exactly this battle of 145 BC. So at first, the excavators thought that it was ruined and abandoned because of the Hasmonean conquest. But later on, Andrea Berlin, one of the excavators, thought it might have to do with some problems in the Seleucid kingdom, maybe something else could be. But it's pre-Hasmonean. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. And I want to add to you and to confirm a sort of confirmation that also in Harayev, if you look at the figurines, you say, oh, they're so beautiful, so Greek, so Alexandrian, but petrographic analysis confirmed that they were locally produced in the area of Tyre too. So
if you look at Higgins, you know the classical publication of Greek terracottas, he says the Harayev stuff is, from the Greek perspective, they are very, very rude.
Yeah, but for our perspective, it's not so true. And maybe after I will give you a reference for this aspect, petrographic aspects.
Thank you. All that I would love to. And I can send you the petrographic results. Maybe it's the geology.
Because we made also a physics analysis about pottery, not only figurines but also pottery found in Harayev and in this region of in this part of Lebanon. So we have other type of confirmations.
Thank you so much. It will be very useful.
Do you know how big are the astragals from Tel Kedesh?
Yeah, I held them in my hands. I think I have them with a scale. This is centimeter. You know what? I'm not sure because this is the American scale. So let's have a look at. I didn't put it in here. They are a little bit smaller than the natural ones.
Okay.
I had a scale and I took it off for the slide. So they are like smaller, like 80% from the natural ones.
You can take the 5.
Yeah, you can play with them, yeah, for sure. They are more heavy, but that's okay. It's even easier because they don't, Yeah.
Okay.
Just one last question, because you know we are constructing a database recording all possible board games, or with question marks, I'm not sure. So what can we do about Elrich? So maybe we show again the pool?
I will show it to you, and I know if Mariana and the team she's working with maybe can be more helpful, because this was published in the late 70s, this specific paper in the Bulletin du Musée de Beirut. Oh no, I think I went too far. And just a second, let me get there.
You have a little. How did you see something similar? Because you know everything.
I went too far. Yes. So in any case, I don't want to delay you.
I was thinking of a pool where you have these little.
So if someone can go and take new photos, maybe Mariana, one of you two who works there, or a colleague of yours, can go and take photos. So it should be someone local who knows the place, because the places you can see, you can still visit the places. So to look at it, and who knows where? Do we know where the counters are? The 30,000 pieces.
And just to say that counters can be used to count, but let's also not forget that you can play with them otherwise than with the board game. You can play up things. You can play throwing at the
like marble.
Yes, like marbles. Yes. There's a wider range of possibilities.
And I think the best play is the play which means I have better and I have more. And let's change. I have blue, you have green. I mean, it can be also negotiating. And thank you very much. Thank you.
So to finish this morning, we will listen to Anna Amar. She's a PhD student and research assistant here at Fribourg University. She joined the Locus Ludi team at its very beginning, and she researched in images of children engaging in playful activities, especially on Attic Red figure portrait.
So this presentation is part of my doctoral thesis, which I started 17 months ago, and it is supervised here by Professor Véronique Dasen at the University of Fribourg, and by Gabriela Pierunti at the École Pratique des Hautes Études in Paris. So it is also part of the ERC project Locus Ludi, which I'm sure you all know now. The doctoral research analyzes the production of Athenian vase paintings from the 5th to the 4th centuries BC, which is characterized by an increasing number of depictions of children engaging in playful activities. These children can be boys or girls, from the crawling toddler to the young teenager, and they play alone or in small groups, most of the time without any adults. Sometimes these playful activities involve the use of specific toys, such as a toy roller, a rattle, a small ball, or a small racing chariot, or even a swagalon. The vase itself is depicted as a playful object, more often being used by children as a target to hit by their small ball. In other cases, children are depicted playing games without these specific objects, most of the time in small groups, and the rules are sometimes hard to identify, and the textual sources can't always help. Games also involve small animals, depicted as real playmates for children. So we have small dogs, birds, deers and goats, and they all take an active part in the playful activities. As you may have already noticed, the corpus is mainly composed of a specific type of small jug called kous, or koes in plural form. These vases come in very different sizes, as the smallest one is only 4 centimeters high, and the biggest one 15 centimeters high. A very similar iconography is also depicted on other shapes of Attic vases, as well as squat lekitoi. You have 2 examples here. And the name given to these vases, the koes, is also the name of the second day of the Athenians festival of Antesaria. That explains the connection frequently made between this particular shape of vases and this particular festival. Scholars have often studied the koes and their depictions through the festival context and thus for their shape. So the koes are studied because they are koes and because they have this particular shape. For Gerhard von Horn, who made an impressive catalogue of them, all the scenes on the small koes may refer to the Antesaria. A new research is an opportunity to question this systematic association. And in my, oh, I'm sorry, update. So I have to update my Microsoft Office. In my doctoral research, this question is quite new, as during the first year of my PhD, it has seemed important to me and my supervisor to focus on images from themselves. The recently established collaboration with Gabriella Pironti will allow to develop further this question, as she specializes in religious studies. Her expertise will be really helpful to my work. So today I'm presenting more questions than answers, and it is still an open folder. And I'd gladly receive any remark or advice you can give me. It makes no doubt that the koes depiction refer to a festival context. Ritual objects and ritual gestures are used and made by the children on several vases from the corpus. According to the interpretation of Gerhard von Horn, which see on every one of these scenes a clear reference to the second day of the Antesaria festival, objects are systematically interpreted as objects used during this festival. Crowns worn by children, the tables often depicted on the scenes, the cakes held by young boys and girls become parts of the Antesaria rituals. And of course, the presence of grapes are to associate with a Dionysiac festivity. On the small koes are also depicted elements referring to the sanctuary. Many scenes show altars, and very few architectural elements may be referring to a temple. So here you have 2 examples with part of an altar, and here you have another one, and here, I'm sorry because the reflect is really bad here, but you have something which can be identified as a temple. So shall we, as von Horn interpretation suggests, see systematic references to the specific Athenian festival of the Antesaria? And children's contribution to the Antesaria is not easily attested by literary nor epigraphic sources and can be discussed. A potential answer can be given by focusing on the connection between these festival references and playful activities engaging by children. For Natalie Spinetto, these games, as depicted on the koes, take place during the second day of the Antesaria festival. For Van Horn, the toys used by children are gifts received for the special occasion of the festival. If this interpretation highlights the interconnection between play, games, and religious events, they also can be discussed. In this text of Aristophanes, Strepsiades speaks to his son Philippides, and he mentions the time he bought him a small wheel cart at the occasion of another festival, Athenian festival, the Diasia. This text, which is the only textual sources from the classical period we have, doing the connection between a toy, a child, and a festival, allows us to open the interpretation to other festivals than Antesaria. During the classical period, religious events as Antesaria, Diasia, or other festivals seem to have been the occasion for the child to receive an object from his panoply of toys. So this is the toy cart which the text of Aristophanes may refer to. So you have here used a different way by different children. This one seems too small to use it. And this example of the course is really interesting because you have a real picture of all the panoply of toys a Greek child can have with the course. This is quite important. Opening the interpretation to other Athenian festivals allows to use images not only as simple illustrations of a specific moment of the Athenian year, but as a depiction of a childhood in which playful activities have a part in a more general religious context. In a more religious context. Children become the key actors interacting with games as well as religions. Toys and playmates appear on the vases by their size among these religious references. So here you have the dog, which is the more common playmate for young Greek children. And this one has also a toy cart, which is using a really weird way. The kous, which was earlier shown as a toy, becomes an instrument for the ritual. So here you have the example I showed earlier, and here the same kous, the same vase, which is depicted on a kous, is used in a really different way. Questioning the corpus of the coes leads to questioning the contribution of children to the events of the Athenian civic community. As in playful activities, children are depicted without adults on these scenes. So, shall we see children as real actors of ritual gestures, or can these scenes be understood as an imitation game? In this case, the ritual, as depicted on coes, will become itself a game. At this point, it can be said that the coes iconography connects childhood to play, games, and rituals. But the interpretation must be discussed, and it is still an open folder. So I'd like to thank Véronique Dasen for letting me seizing the occasion of your presence here today to present you this part of my doctoral research. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I find it so interesting because during this morning we have seen all this material from different viewpoints and different contexts. Because also what is so important, the ocean, Kayed, Kadesh, and now it is Athens. It is really a purely Athenian production. So we have again another cultural context and how children interact there. Yes. But with similar items. And at the same time, some specific ones, like the wheel cart. You have seen wheel carts. in non-video context. It seems to take a special importance in an Athenian one. It's just something to explore.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
It's amazing because it's pretty much the same until it disappeared.
Yeah.
And today, children from very young age, they are with their iPads. So
Yes.
it's like evolution. We're now on the trend.
Yes.
This project is for the heritage of humankind because
Exactly. Yes, I know we are in a turning point. There is a whole patrimony that is disappearing. And for us, even today, it takes us longer to understand what they did play. And Bec de Fouquier in 1869, he still understood everything. Because at his time, it was a similar ecology of those games. Yes.
No, of course, I should also congratulate this presentation, and also for me it's a link with Pollux, with our literary sources. Pollux is the author of the second AD, but in fact it was so many links, quotation with comedy, with tragics, also with authors of this period, exactly of classical Athens age, 15 BC. So it is very interesting to compare this corpus of poets that you have shown and investigated with also descriptions in Pollux. It is really to how this iconographical text could interact with our literary descriptions of the quotation of ancient or classical Athens authors referred to by Pollux. So it's very instructive.
But one thing which is striking, and maybe you realize it already this morning, is when we started the work on the Koe, what could be read in textbook, was that this Koe was wonderful. We were entering the room of the children, all their toys, and in fact we found out that they had almost nothing as toys. I mean, there is the ball, there is the dog, there is the wheel cart, and that's over. And in fact you have the same in Karayev, you have the same as well, maybe the top, the spinning top, but and the trokos, but not much. So the game has also to do with the mimicry, with performing in different ways. And that's why it's very interesting to see this terracotta. It confirms that the array of material is not very wide. It's our contemporary vision that there should be more. But no, that's not necessary.
So just to answer Salvatore, of course, Pollux will be used as something to consider, even for a ball game, for the smallest one. I think that it can be an idea to speak about the tropa or some games like that. Yeah. Of course, I have a few examples of ephedrismos depicted on the vases, so I think that, of course, Pollux is a really precious source that I continue. But of course, because the coes have been made 600 here before Pollux, so yeah, I just have to be careful, I think, and precautious. And just I have a question for Mariana. Do you have any ideas of gods playing with children on the small terracottas?
Not really playing. We have figurines, criophori.
So they are
young
mostly
boys offering, I don't know, but bringing some.
Okay.
And I found a text you received this afternoon.
Okay, that's mysterious. Okay. And all the children, do they ride the animals? Sometimes? No, never.
No, they carry on.
Okay.
Yeah. You see them in the trees that they show.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can see them riding deer. What it?
Okay.
Like an antelope.
Yeah, I think.
Two kinds of antelopes.
Okay.
Be like, I was wondering about all kinds of games. So there are games that really have to do with motoric capabilities, you know, like throwing the ball or the astrogals, and there are the board games. But do we have evidence for games like Lego for construction? I'm wondering, do we have any?
Text. textual.
Yes, there are
Yes.
textures.
There are at least two describing, or even more, by comparison, describing how whoever was playing with sand and constructing houses, Seneca, I think. And he says that when we get old, we play the same things, but it is with stone, it's no more with sand castle on the sea, and on the seashore. And
also in the Iliad we have the...
Yes, exactly.
With people...
Comparisons.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So they use natural materials a lot, like
Yes.
Yeah, so I have some images with children doing really specific gestures, which are really, really difficult to identify. So I'm not sure that they are constricting something, but why not? Yeah. I think that something is missing here, so maybe a white ad to can't say, but I really don't think that they are Legos. But,
Okay, let's close.